Moscow, 1768. The room is cold, but it is not the cold that makes people hesitate before speaking. It is her name. Darya Saltykova sits under imperial scrutiny for the first time in her life, not in her manor, not behind walls that once answered only to her will, but in a space where silence no longer belongs to her. And for the first time in years, people are speaking about disappearances reported by estate workers and petitioners, about punishments described in testimony, often consistent in pattern, across accounts preserved in investigation records, about fear that, according to imperial documentation, seemed to linger across estates where oversight had long been absent. She does not interrupt, but nothing in the room feels calm. It feels like pressure, slow, steady, irreversible. To understand how Darya Saltykova reaches this moment, we step back. Years earlier, she is a Moscow noblewoman managing large estates under the structure of serfdom. Her position places her within a system where land ownership carries not only wealth, but near total authority over those who work the land. Within that world, distance becomes power. Orders are not debated. They are carried out. And reaching higher authority to challenge noble households is structurally difficult. Because in this system, social rank often carries more weight than testimony. At least for a time. Over time, something begins to accumulate. Not in public courts, not in open confrontation, but in petitions, repeated written appeals carried toward Moscow over a period of years, and in accounts from estate workers, later referenced in imperial investigation summaries, though exact details vary between sources and surviving records. These materials describe allegations of extreme cruelty within the Saltykova estates. Importantly, there is no single unified narrative in historical documentation. What exists is a convergence of repeated accusations recorded during investigation. In Imperial Russia, accusing a noble household was not only difficult, it carried real risk. Many petitions reportedly failed to reach higher authorities. Others were delayed or filtered through local administrative structures. And those who spoke did so knowing consequences could follow, because challenging nobility was not just legal, it was structural and often dangerous. Inside estates like Saltykova's, daily life is described through a mixture of testimony and later administrative records. Fear is not always visible. It does not need to be. It exists in silence, in hesitation, in behavior shaped by expectation of punishment. What is more consistently recorded in investigation materials is a pattern of repeated allegations of severe mistreatment within the household, later confirmed through imperial inquiry. Outside those walls, institutional response remains slow, because systems built on hierarchy tend to absorb pressure before they respond to it, until that pressure becomes unavoidable. Under Catherine II's broader reforms, imperial governance increasingly emphasizes legal order and administrative control over noble conduct. This shift is uneven but important. It creates conditions where petitions that once disappeared within local structures can reach higher authorities. And in this environment, complaints regarding Saltykova begin to move further than before. They are no longer only local grievances. They become a matter of imperial oversight, and that changes their weight. In Moscow, candlelight flickers across administrative tables. Paper accumulates. Statements are collected. Witnesses are questioned multiple times. What emerges is not a single story, but a pattern of allegations repeated across testimonies recorded in imperial investigation files. Serious accusations of abuse are documented, forming a consistent direction of claims across multiple accounts. At this stage, the central question is no longer only what happened, but whether such accusations can be formally acknowledged and acted upon within a system historically structured to protect noble households. And that question carries political consequence. because acknowledgement sets precedent. Eventually, imperial authority acts. Darya Saltykova is removed from her estate under state order. This marks a rare moment in which noble insulation is formally broken by investigation. Her title is not immediately erased, but its protection is no longer absolute. Within aristocratic circles, the signal is unmistakable. Status is no longer a guaranteed shield. In Moscow, proceedings continue. Documents are reviewed. Statements are compared. Witnesses are questioned under supervision. There is no single unified testimony that defines the case. Instead, there is accumulation, multiple accounts forming a broader investigative pattern. What the court evaluates is not only individual claims, but whether those claims collectively demonstrate a system of abuse within a noble household. And beneath the legal process lies a political reality. If one estate can be fully examined, others are no longer assumed to be beyond reach. Eventually, the imperial decision is delivered. Darya Saltykova is convicted. Her noble status is stripped, her authority removed. She is publicly humiliated and displayed in chains before sentencing, an explicit signal of imperial authority over noble privilege. She is then sentenced to life imprisonment in the Ivanovsky convent, not execution, but total removal from society, a punishment defined by erasure of visibility rather than death. And in doing so, it establishes a precedent that extends beyond one individual, into the boundaries of noble power itself. Darya Saltykova was investigated, convicted, and punished for extreme cruelty towards serfs. Historical records attribute dozens of deaths to her case, with some accounts suggesting figures exceeding 100, though exact numbers vary across documentation. Her story exists between imperial records and later interpretation, but the structure is clear. She ruled without limits until the system she depended on was forced to confront what it had allowed. This is not a story about a woman breaking the system, but about what happens when a system allows absolute power, regardless of who holds it. Serfdom created extreme imbalance. Oversight was weak, and authority, once granted, was rarely questioned until pressure forced it into view. Power without accountability becomes dangerous. Systems protect authority until pressure forces response. Leadership is not only about power, but limits on power. Oversight defines whether authority becomes abuse. Precedent-setting cases reshape systems slowly, and sometimes they begin with a single name that can no longer be ignored. Darya Saltykova's case remains one of those moments. Not because it was simple, but because it forced a question that systems often avoid. How long can authority remain unchecked before it is finally held accountable? If this story moved you, there are more like it on this channel. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.